welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're doing something a little bit different. We're stepping completely away from those polished Instagram perfect highlight reels of success, and we're looking at something way deeper. We're going to dive into the unseen emotional toll, the intense, sometimes crushing isolation, and the incredibly heavy pressure that true builders face every single day. If you're building something right now, maybe it's a startup, a community program, or even just forging a new path for your family, you know exactly what I mean. The journey? Yeah, it's rarely as glamorous as it looks from the outside. There is a profound, literal weight to leadership, and today we're going to unpack exactly how you actually carry it. So, what happens when the applause completely fades and you're just left alone with the pressure? Man, it's a heavy thought, right? Because the reality is, the vast majority of a builder's time isn't spent cutting ribbons or popping champagne at milestones. Not even close. It's spent in these really quiet, isolated moments, staring down complex, messy problems, and just wondering if you actually have what it takes to solve them. And hey, I want to validate that feeling for you right now. That isolation you're feeling, it's not a sign you're doing something wrong. Actually, it's proof that you are well and truly in the arena.
And that brings us to a massive paradigm shift. Leadership doesn't start when you feel ready, but when you feel responsible. Look, so many of us get trapped in this illusion, right? We think we need the perfect business plan, absolute 100% certainty, or some shiny certification before we can even begin. But waiting to feel perfectly qualified? It's a total trap. True leadership isn't born from readiness. It's born from this undeniable gut-level sense of duty.
Which leads us straight into our first section, the responsibility spark, and that deep, undeniable ache to fix the broken. You see, this internal fire is fueled by what the source beautifully calls an extraordinary ache. Real builders, they don't start because they're craving power or just desperately chasing a fancy C-suite title. No, they look at a system or a culture or their local community and they see what's broken. They see it and they feel a burden so deep they literally cannot just walk away. You don't step up to lead because you magically have all the answers. You lead because you see the wall right in front of you is in absolute ruins, and you feel personally responsible for rebuilding the whole shebang.
Now, waiting around for absolute readiness, that's going to keep you completely paralyzed, like sand stuck in an hourglass. But feeling a heavy responsibility, that is what actually forces you to start pushing against that broken wall. The source material drops a really profound piece of wisdom here. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Now, whether you look at that through a spiritual lens or just a purely practical everyday one, the message is super clear. Leadership is simply the decision to step out, often with trembling courage, starting from a really modest position, just to solve a problem that actually matters.
Okay, so you've got the spark. Now, you desperately need momentum. Let's talk about escaping the analysis trap, using the START framework. Let's be real for a second. Over-analysis is the absolute enemy of growth. Paralysis by analysis will straight up kill your vision before it ever even takes its first breath. I mean, come on, we've all been there, right? Staring at a blank document for 3 hours and calling it strategy. Well, the source gives us this incredibly practical, physical roadmap to escape that exact paralysis. It's not just some nice theory, it's a real, actionable path forward. Let's just walk through this START acronym together, step by step. First, see the opportunity. You've got to identify the specific, glaring problem that breaks your heart. Then, take action. Now look, this is usually the hardest step, but stepping into the total unknown without a perfect, flawless plan is literally the only bridge between your good intentions and actual, tangible results. Next up, adapt. You have to be super flexible in your methods, but stay completely grounded in your core mission. Then, reflect. Use self-awareness to really evaluate your reactions. And finally, trust the process. Understand that real success, it almost always takes root in dark, quiet places long before it ever blossoms in the light. And doing all this creates what we call a powerful momentum loop. Think of it like a giant flywheel. It all kicks off with action. As you repeat those actions, you inevitably start building competence. That newfound confidence naturally yields confidence. And what does confidence do? It fuels the courage you need to take even bigger, bolder risks. It's a self-sustaining engine. So if you're sitting there feeling a lack of courage right now, the solution isn't to sit and think harder. No way! The solution is to jump right back to the beginning of the loop and just take action. That brings us to phase 3, the character Wi-Fi signal. This is all about moving from taking action to actually building influence.
I want you to think of your character like a Wi-Fi signal. Look, it doesn't matter if you have the newest, most expensive, top-of-the-line smartphone. If there's no network connection, right, it's basically a paperweight. Well, in leadership, if your character's signal is weak, nobody can connect to you. It totally doesn't matter how impressive your title is, your rank, or how fancy your corner office nameplate might be. People ultimately connect to the internal signal you project. And there is a massive, game-changing distinction here. Borrowed authority, that's assigned to you externally. It's your job title, and sure, it might make people obey you because they have to. But earned influence, that is built completely internally. It makes people actually believe in you. It's the difference between mere compliance and true, deep commitment. Real, effective leaders, they don't rely on borrowed authority for long. They actively cultivate earned influence.
And that earned influence, it rests on two rock-solid pillars. The first is integrity. Integrity is what makes people trust your voice today. They look at you and know, okay, they walk the talk. The second pillar is consistency. Consistency is what ensures that people are going to keep listening to you tomorrow, and the next day, and through every single inevitable storm that hits. Together, these two pillars create this incredibly predictable, reliable foundation of trust and respect. All right, let's slow things down just a bit here because we are arriving at the absolute most critical part of this entire explainer. Section 4, building your inner CORE, the ultimate blueprint for inner strength. Because here's the truth, the storms are going to come. The pressure is going to be immense. To survive the profound isolation and the intense, unseen pressure of leadership, you just cannot focus only on the branches that everybody sees above ground. You have to cultivate a deep, extensive, unshakable root system underground. This is your CORE blueprint. The sources give us this beautifully clear definition that I absolutely love. Inner strength. It's the ability to bend without snapping under pressure. It allows a leader to flex, to adapt, without breaking into pieces. Notice that this goes way, way beyond just sheer physical toughness. Physical toughness is mostly about resisting and being rigid. Inner strength is the profound ability to acknowledge the pain, to actually feel the intense emotions of the struggle, and yet still completely retain your core sense of self. So, what exactly makes up this deep root system? It's the CORE traits. The C and O stand for courage and optimism. That's the boldness to face your battles head-on, armed with the genuine faith that ruins can actually be restored. Then, the R and E. That's resilience and emotional stability. The relentless drive to persist through massive obstacles while remaining completely grounded. And here is the huge takeaway. This emotional stability, it's not innate. You aren't just magically born with it. Actually, scratch that. Nobody is born with it. It is an intentional choice, cultivated every single day through continuous growth and serious self-mastery. Which brings us to this incredibly powerful, sobering climax from the text. True strength is tested in the silence that follows failure. Think about that for a second. Anyone can be strong when the momentum is high, the money is flowing, and the crowd is cheering your name. But real, enduring strength? That is measured by how you stand when the applause abruptly ends, the confidence fades, and you are left completely alone in the echoing silence of a massive setback. That is the exact moment your deep roots are tested. And so I want to leave you with this final, crucial question to chew on. When the inevitable storms of isolation and pressure hit your project, your team, or your life, are your roots going to be deep enough to bend without snapping? Leadership is a really heavy burden, for sure. But by embracing that responsibility spark, escaping the analysis trap, projecting a rock-solid character signal, and purposefully cultivating your inner CORE, you can absolutely build a legacy that lasts. Keep building, keep growing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.